Chit chat.
What should I set the thermostat at?
57.
Hello and welcome back to Night School Out of Character, which is not off the table. We're having a quick name change with that after only one episode. We are going to be Night School Out of Character, which is really fitting for today because we are actually talking about being in character and how we develop our characters. Because I know all of us are have really different methods in how we develop our characters. So I want to know, I actually want to hear from our GM first about how he develops his characters, because we don't get to see a lot of your characters. Actually, we don't get to see almost any of your characters.
But I would fight that. You actually get to see more characters than anybody else, because every NPC that you run across is my character. And so I know, and this I definitely know this is not just because I am running the game. Everybody who enjoys this tabletop role-playing games style, they have buku characters in their back pocket. They might not be written down, but they keep saying, one day I'm gonna play and they're already thinking of the character. And there's even those moments where in-game you have the, my character's probably gonna die today. It's okay. I think I know who I'm going to next. Everybody has characters. That's but true. You don't get to see my characters for an extended period of time because they don't hang around too much.
Well, our favorites we try to bring back.
That is true.
Every time, let's go visit Shui. Oh no, we can't. Oh.
That's actually a really good point, and you're 100% right. You do have the most characters out of anybody. And Hovda, you're right. There are characters in past campaigns that we have really grown to love and build relationships with, and we want to see, like, where are they now episodes. Yeah. I think that would be a lot of fun.
Like, I feel as a player, we're doing a good job when we make Vasquez have to, like, come up with stats for the character because they're going to end up helping us or something like that at some point. Where he's
it's funny you think that they don't already have stats.
I know some of them I don't think you do, but...
Oh, no, yeah, there's some that I'm like, no, that's really just a...
You're like, no, leave her alone. Stop talking to her. Keep going.
She's a grandmother. She's not fighting a dragon.
But she gave Baba a dress. She needs to come with us.
Hovda, I think out of, at least in the campaigns that we've played, you've actually put in a lot of thought into your characters that you are building. Maybe not a few of them, but I feel like for the most part, like there was a certain turning point in our gameplay where you really started to think about backstory and adding in those little details to your characters. So I kind of want to hear your process.
Well, I know for me, there's like my campaign process, and then there's like my one-off process.
Absolutely. I do too, but I want to hear yours.
And like the one-offs I'd probably start with, because it's like, that's almost like, for me, I can use it as like a practice where it's like, I've thought about doing this, but I don't know, A, how well it'll go, and B, if I can like keep it up. So it's one of those things, huh? Sorry, everybody froze on me.
You kind of skipped on us. You were talking about using it for practice.
Yeah. Well, because it's one of those things where it's like, it's something I want to try to do, but it's like out of my comfort zone. So it's like, A, I want to see if it can work, and B, if I can pull it off for an extended period of time. But it's like, when it comes to campaign characters, I feel like for me, they're always a large portion of myself, just because it's something like, okay, like I can't be somebody who hates dogs for 3 years in a campaign. I know I can't do that. So it's like, I would never build that into my character. Can I do it for maybe like an afternoon and a 3-hour one-off? Maybe, but it's like when it comes to like a campaign character, it has to be something you're comfortable doing, because um, if your character does stay alive, you're going to be that character for an extended period of time, and also it's one of those things for me. Um, since it is a group campaign, as it were, your character needs to be somewhat likable to at least the people you're with, for the most part, or at least they can tolerate you because you have some kind of redeeming quality that's useful to the group. If not, it's like an episode of Survivor where it's like, oh yeah, we're on this team together, but nobody likes you. First chance we get, we're going to vote you off.
That's fair. I think that's a good reasoning for not wanting to be an antagonizing character. Michael, I saw your face change when you said that.
Because I completely agree with you, Hovda. I think you hit exactly how I usually play my characters in campaigns. Recently, I had one of my teams in one of the games that I'm playing in tell me, he was like, your characters always have this idea of like they don't enjoy being with the group, but they come along anyway with this kind of moral duty. I know that I personally love playing characters who are that aren't chaotic, that they really do have a law they have to follow or a code. That way I have my parameters. However, I also love playing with the opposite notions of what the stats actually come across as. So I'm a very charismatic person. I like communication skills. However, I also know that charisma doesn't necessarily mean that you are a charming, beautiful person. Charisma just means you can coax someone to go along with what you're doing. You have that manipulative ability to get other people to do a certain thing. So I like playing it with that negative aspect and being the person who kind of calls out the flaws of other players. But I also know that if I do that and it's just arrogance, they're going to hate being in the game with me. But if I do it to a certain point at certain moments with certain characters, I can build plot and story, but I have to balance it out with my usefulness. As long as I'm showing that I can still play the game and I'm solving problems and assisting, it's kind of that little nagging younger brother or younger sister kind of mentality of, I still love them, but man, they can drive me crazy.
I think that's fair. I don't know. I mean, and you guys can tell me if I'm wrong. I've never on purpose played a unlikable character. But I can see how I'm curious to see or to know like how difficult that actually is, finding that balance between playing an antagonizing character or playing a stat that maybe is not as likable as you would expect, and then also throwing in that usefulness. I'm curious about that. I mean, how difficult that is to balance that out.
I think it's not that it's doable for pretty much anybody. I would think anybody could find that balance. The hard part is remembering that you are not the only player in the show. So it's very, you got to think like a stage actor. You have to open up opportunities for other people to react. And if they react in a way that makes you look really bad, you have to reflect on that. Naturally, as humans, whenever we get called out for having a negative flaw, we take that personally, whether we show it on the outside or not, and we have to deal with it. Well, if I'm going to play a real character that has depth and realism to them, if I come across as arrogant, annoying, instigating, and someone calls me out on it, I need to react the way that a person would. I need to either pull back, become reclusive, or I can bolster up and double down, knowing that there's a chance I'm going to get called on a bluff. And there's actually a lot of enjoyment for me whenever I do go heavy on one person and someone steps up and tries to counteract what my character's doing. And I realize now I have somebody who I can really kind of go back and forth with. And that's usually what I look for in my parties. I need one player who's willing to step up to that intensity level with me. And it's almost like we're that side kind of co-stars in a sitcom. It's like, we have the main story and then we always check in on these two and this is what's happening. And I love that.
You're the B story.
Oh, yeah. Always the bridesmaid.
No, and I really like that idea of you have to react as if your character is a real person. And Hovda, you mentioned earlier that you use your own characteristics or like your own personality traits to build your characters, and I do the exact same thing. So I'll usually pick a character trait of mine that either I always it's really easy for me to I guess portray that, or something I really want to explore. I'll usually use that for like a shorter period of time, and kind of build that into either the backstory or another character or something like that. But that's usually how I'll build like my actual campaign characters. It's always an extension of me. I don't think I've ever built a campaign character that didn't have a really big part of my own personality in it.
I'm really curious about Vic because
Mhm.
Vic, you're kind of new to this. We talked about this last time, and so far I've only seen maybe 3 characters, and most of them have been for one shots. So, how did you go about creating your first like full long-term character?
That one was that's the one we're playing now, and that was a hard like part of it was easy. I wanted to do something that I thought was very different than my personality. And then there are aspects of it that as we've played, I'm like, oh, yeah, I do that. Oh, so it's definitely been like a learning experience in terms of like getting to create characters for different things. But like even that, like for our campaign, like, oh, like it's a learning experience of learning about myself. So some of it is very intentional, some of it's not. Like the very, very first character I created, Kat and Hovda sat me down in my classroom, used the whiteboard at the front of the room to talk about different races, different classes. And I was like really, 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 really incredibly new and was like, sure, let's do that. Sure, let's do that. So even like the aspect of role playing, I don't think was really there. And even like as we're playing this like long campaign, I see things that there's a lot of, or there's character development that's happening as it goes. Like it for me, it didn't happen all right beforehand because it's also new. I don't know.
No, and I think I think you're exactly right. Most of the character development doesn't happen before you start playing. It happens as you play and as your character interacts with other people and learns different things, and how your character reacts to certain things that happen during the campaign. That's what builds your character more. It's those reactions and the consistency in those reactions, which can be hard also. Keeping that consistency is really hard because some days you might feel like you might have a little bit of a meta day where you're reacting as yourself and not your character, and sometimes it's difficult to stay in character.
I actually find it really funny that you described it that process, Vic, because I equate character development. Usually, when I stumble across players, it comes into 2 different categories, and I equate it almost to like a video game where you have your character design at the beginning of the game. Sometimes if you play through them, they are so detailed, and like you can change the nose, the eyes, the eyebrows, the width of the brow, and there's so many details. People either spend time in the details making their character because before they start, they want to know who they are, or people just say, I'm going to push play and we're going to see what happens in the story.
Preset
and I'm
one.
going to start, yeah, one or the other. That's how I run across it, because for Kat, for you to say like, oh, well, I build my character as we go, that almost baffles my mind, because for me, I have to have my background needs to be really set up. I know who my relationships are. I know if something pops up, how do I react to that already? Are there reasons why I avoid certain people? Do I have personal flaws that are extremely noticeable, or is this more of a hidden dark secret? Which I love intrigue. That's one of my favorite parts of role playing. I like having something that I can drop clues at over months of play. And then a year into the campaign, some perfect situation pops up and someone says something and I can reveal what happened way back when we first started, and it's the reaction of the players around me to like, oh my gosh, that's why you did something in the past. And it's that quick burst, even though they're not in character, they might not be present in the scene, the players themselves realize you just conned us, or you went so far and we thought we knew something about you, and you kind of pulled the rug under our feet at the last moment. But I feel like you can't do that naturally if you're trying to build up story and making your background as you're already playing, because then it almost becomes artificial of like, oh, well, you tried to make that happen, versus I knew it was a possibility and it just, that's how the dice fell, and it's happening.
Well, I think the background, like if you go really intense on a background, that would like, if you're playing your character, that leads you to certain choices that, even if they're not right for the game, even if they're not the best thing for the situation, you make those because you're like, you know, this is what my character would do. Even though I know it's not the best for the group, I know it's not the best for the situation, this is what my character would do right here and now. But like sort of Kat's point, the other side of that is like, I could create a character be in a certain way in my mind, but then as I meet other NPCs, as I play with the rest of my character, either A, those personalities could be, you know, flourish because the rest of the group sort of likes them, or they could be sort of underlying because it clashes with the group, to where, you know, it could come to be a situation in the future, it might not. And, you know, it's one of those things where I think that may sort of be what Kat means, because like I feel that way, where it's like, you know, I think Kat said a few times where like, usually when we do campaigns, our characters like each other. But when we do one-offs, they don't. But it's that thing where like in my one-offs, it's like I'm trying to do something that's out of my comfort zone, that's like not the most like overall friendly character or person, that's like, it can clash and it can, you know, rub people the wrong way, even in like such a short amount of time.
Because it's safe to do that. Because you know it's a one-off, you know, like
correct. I was like, I don't have to keep it up for a long time.
Yeah, it was easy to be super obnoxious because I knew it was that one afternoon.
That
Well,
actually,
character beta.
Sorry, go ahead, Michael.
Oh, say it's a character beta. That's what a one-off is. It's a place for you to experiment.
Yeah. Well, and I was actually going to say, Elizabeth, that actually brings up like a really good point. That's really insightful, because you're exactly right. Whenever we do one-shots, I'll usually, what I usually do is I'll pick my race and my class and have like a general idea of like the personality, but I randomize my stats. And if I do randomize my race and my class, like when I'm feeling lazy, like it directly affects how much I care about that character. It takes that like that feeling and that emotion out of it. And it's almost like, oh, well, whatever happens, happens. Like, I hate you, like whatever, it doesn't matter. That part alone, just choosing the race and class, is so important for me personally in just caring about that character.
Right.
Well, so I'm actually curious. Oh, go ahead.
Well, no, I just real fast. I think for me, because I've played the same class in each, like either one-off or campaign or one-off that we've done. And some of that was intentional in that, like, there's so much I'm still learning. So I think you have a good point, Kat, is like, I wasn't super attached to the character before, and thought like, oh, it would be fun to do a character like this and this, so let's do that. But also like, hey, here's another opportunity for me to learn or keep practicing how to play this type of character. Okay, sorry, Michael.
No, you're good. So I was actually curious to kind of move us into a different zone of thought. How do you feel whenever you come into a game, and I mean, we're lucky because we've played multiple games with each other, but do you feel like you want to serve a certain role in the party already? And how flexible are you, or are you flexible at all for whenever people start identifying what they want to be? Whether that is like, I want to balance out the party because I feel like we need to have more of this, or it even could be like I need to have I want to start the party off knowing somebody, related to somebody, so that I don't have to worry about building connection, versus I want to be completely isolated and I want to live that natural connection. Because in our campaign, the three of you gave me completely different characters that I was like, I don't know how y'all would fit together, and the backgrounds were so detailed that it didn't make sense for you to be together. So I had y'all come together, and it was very good seeing y'all kind of interplay of how you actually introduced each other and met each other, and that natural way y'all bonded. But that doesn't happen all the time with parties. They struggle to find a reason to get out of the tavern they start in to do something, because it makes no sense to just go with a stranger on an adventure.
I don't know. I feel like whenever we do like one shots in like other places when we're playing with strangers, I really do like to take the back seat because I don't know them. And that's just a personality thing. I would say it has nothing to do with the character that I build. It's just me interacting with new people, but that also affects how I play my character. And they're not as outspoken. They're not readily willing to make decisions for the party or anything like that. But I will say, whenever I do play with people that I don't know, I am a little bit more adventurous in the kinds of characters that I'll play. I like to play more spellcasters, things like that, where I can be a little bit more creative. But I feel like whenever we play together as a group, I wouldn't say it's my preferred role, but I feel like it happens more as I end up making more of the decisions. And I don't know why that is. I would prefer it not be that way.
I actually have a theory on that, and I think the two of us have it similar. Whenever I play characters, my very first character, if we go back to the very first time we stumbled in, I played a rogue named Tito. And I was super excited because I love those slippery, acrobatic, agile kind of characters, and this was perfect for me. And we didn't get to play that long, so I really didn't get to see how it went. But then the moment I watched our first campaign, every out of the 11 people that came together, 90% of them were melee characters. So it was just like hack and slash. They all surrounded one person, and it was just I hit. And then they would get into problems where you couldn't do anything because you needed to have another way to solve a situation besides just wearing something down. Y'all kept getting close to dying, and I was like, you've got to figure this out somehow. And I kept thinking, if you would have just had a spellcaster, a healer, somebody different, it would have changed everything. And so whenever I go in, I don't like to know what other people are, but I already have the notion in my head that I'm going to go into a party, and most of the population in the world are not going to be confident talkers. So charisma people are going to be low. Most people are going to be afraid of spells because the amount you have to know when it comes to materials, components, the shape of the spell, how far it goes, is it concentration? There's so many other things to keep up on, included as a part of like every feature that comes along with your race. And I feel like that intimidates people, so they stay away from spells. So I love being charismatic spellcasters, which means I'm probably going to be a warlock because they're charisma based and they're spellcasting, a bard, charisma based spellcasting, and then every now and then I might be a cleric because I enjoy taking the notion, and this is just me, the notion of taking something that seems holy and spiritual, but I never play it that way. I love taking what the ideal version of one of the classes is and completely revamping it so that it doesn't seem right.
No, I know Pacey, who you were talking about, like seeing how a lot of it was to do with like the world we're in, though. But it was like I had a certain idea how I wanted to play my character, but the way the party sort of formed, the way the world sort of formed, I was like, well, I can't play the character I want to this way. But I was like, it really makes sense for, my character to sort of attach himself to this little guy who, he's a chihuahua that thinks he's a pit bull. But it's like, it's like, it makes sense where it's just like, okay, we're in this together. I know I know how you're useful, but I need to protect you from yourself so you can be useful to us, sort of thing.
Well, I think that says a lot for how, not so much your personal character development, but like the group development. Like that means a lot too. And that has a lot to do with like kind of like how your characters respond and interact with everybody in the group, and you build relationships. And that in and of itself really does help bring the story along.
I love playing with you guys. Sorry, I just gotta throw that in there.
I miss playing with you.
Yeah.
Group dynamic is a big thing. And I think that's another topic that one day we need to jump into, is kind of like the testing the waters of a group, because it's scary. It's scary to find a group. I mean, when we started the channel, we actually were debating over and over again, do we have enough players to really fill out and flesh out a story? And we kept saying, we need one more player, to the point that we had like, not interviews, but we
had all these auditions.
We set up, no, well, I wouldn't even say they were auditions. We set up a few one-shots with people to see like how they interacted with us and to see if it was even something we wanted to pursue.
They were brilliant players.
They were, but
they were brilliant, tactical, charismatic. They filled in gaps that we didn't have. But the charisma part, the talking and speaking and making choices, they were big on that. But when it came down to it, the way that the characters talked to each other and gelled just was not there.
Mm-hmm. We're just good friends.
Yeah. One was pretty good, but they took a job elsewhere.
yeah, there we go. I mean, we still have your brother just on the line. You never know.
Yeah.
The social distancing, not perfect, but
I mean, it works now.
I mean, I feel like even we talked about remote learning and kind of keeping up with gaming online. I think that is still a powerful tool that people are using, but I wonder if the vast majority of people who are trying out gaming for the first time in this platform are seeing it more like a video game, and they're trying to win the challenge in the game, but they're missing out on that role play aspect unless they're playing only with their core group. Because if it's just us playing online, we would still be fine. It wouldn't be the best for us, but we'd still be good. But if I were to jump in, and like I have jumped in, sometimes I don't want to talk to that stranger because I honestly don't know how they play.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well,
so I would love to talk about that in the future.
That'll be a good topic for next time, talking about how to kind of test the waters and figure out what things are okay for your character to say in a new group and what things are not, and how you come up with those rules. So leave us a comment down below about how you develop your characters, or if you have any questions or insights on how we create our characters or do them wrong or whatever.
Or any questions for topics in the future.
Yeah, that's true too.
And make sure you subscribe, because we absolutely love putting out content, but we can't serve anybody if people don't share what we're serving. So click that button, subscribe, and see us next time.